Alrighty folks, so I'm going to do a little commentary today as I string this racket here. It's Wilson Blade Light. First thing we're going to talk about is measuring the string properly. I see a ton of different ways to measure string out there. They all work, but you want to have as little slack as you can afterwards, especially when you're using a reel. Like I'm using a reel here. You want to get as many rackets out of this as you can. So if you're finishing your string job and you got 10 feet of string left, so over time, you're going to lose out on several rackets there. You're just not getting as good a value. So the way I like to do it gives you a pretty much perfect measurement every time. First thing you're doing is looking at the actual, where is it? You're looking for the actual string pattern of the racket. So this one you can see at the throat is a 16 by 20 string pattern. So 16 strings going this way, 20 strings going this way. All we're doing is counting that off. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 16, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then one extra to tie off your knots with. And this is going to give you a perfect amount of string. From there, cut that string. Going to leave a little tip there. It's going to make it easier. And now you're doing your crosses. Crosses you're measuring this way, 20 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now for the crosses, I like to do 2 extra. And that'll make sense later on when we're stringing. It's going to give you more slack at the end. And same thing, you're going to cut so there's a little bit of an angle to the string. There's a little tip to it. It's going to make stringing easier. Alright, set these aside, make sure you don't mix them up, and you can get started. Alrighty, so starting off the racket, a lot of people are going to tell you, again, they're going to complicate things. They're going to tell you to count how many holes are here, and then you can decide where you're going to start from. And they'll tell you can look it up online for the exact string pattern. None of that really matters. You can check the throat, and you can see there's going to be a little groove where the string is supposed to fit in. That's all you got to do is look at it. There's going to be a little groove. On this side, the groove isn't in the middle. Over here, it is. So, this racket starts with a loop at the top. It just makes sense because that's the only way that the string can actually fit in. So, we're going to do that. String at the top. What I'm doing here, putting each string through just a little bit. You can see the tip is right here, and we're just going to line up the tips like that, and then we can pull it through. That's going to ensure that it's a even length of string on each side of the racket. Okay. Now, to start stringing, you're going to clamp at the top of one of your strings, and if you have a starting clamp, this right here is called a starting clamp. This can be handy, especially if your clamps happen to not be very good. Maybe you got some old ones, don't have quite the grip on them anymore. This is going to help with the very first string tensioning because you don't have the added pressure right here that kind of balances everything out. There's a tendency for string slippage. This will fix that. You can probably buy one for around, I don't know, 20 bucks maybe, and it'll go a long way. A lot cheaper than replacing your clamp. So, clamp it off, and we're going to be continuing this process for quite a while. I might fast forward. I'm looking to get this string tensioner as close to the racket as I can. It's going to give you an overall tighter dynamic tension, which is what you're looking for. Okay, and what you're going to see here, I've just tensioned 3 of these main strings. Alright, I got tension of 1, 2, 3. At this point, I'm going to switch to the other side of the racket. This is just going to help balance out the pressure that's applied to each side of the racket. You want it to be even so you can avoid warping of the stick. And again, I'm getting this tension nice and close. Okay, we can take off the starting clamp now. Slide this down. Another thing you'll notice, I'm getting this clamp pretty close here. All right, the further away you have it, the more slack you're going to have here when I let go of this tension head. And this slack is going to have to be pulled through on the next one, but it's not as accurate because you have this rounding here. There's this point of friction going around the actual grommet, and so the tension is not going to be as accurate. That's why I would never recommend double pulling 2 strings at once. You'll see a lot of retail stores will do this just to save time because they have so many rackets to do. They might have 100 rackets to finish in one day, so they'll pull 2 strings at one time. So instead of tensioning right now, they'd actually wrap that through and then pull 2 strings at once. And the accuracy goes way downhill. Again, we're looking for as high of a dynamic tension as you can, the overall tension of the racket. So we're doing everything we can to keep a lot of tightness on this. So again, I'm really close. That's one way of helping it. And then I'm clamping off nice and close as well. You're also going to notice I'm not clamping off super fast here. I'm allowing the string a little bit of time to stretch. It's taking me, I don't know, maybe 2 seconds to tension each string. Taking that little extra time, not rushing that process, allowing the string to stretch out. Okay, now I'm 3 ahead again, so I can start going back to this side. This might seem a little fast to some people, might seem slow to others. There's some fast stringers out there. Most important thing, especially if you're stringing for someone else, go at a pace that you can control. Doesn't matter if it takes you 20 minutes to string the mains compared to 5-6 minutes. If you do it right, you do it right. I have seen people break rackets before while stringing when they're new at this, because they do something wrong but they don't realize it because they're rushing through the process. So take your time, put some music on, watch some TV shows, something. Okay, I'm tying off a knot right here, and you're not going to be able to see this very well. I'll have another video up showing knots more in depth. Feel like Googling it, I'm doing a double half hitch knot. There's a fair amount of different styles you can do. I like the double half hitch, very simple. Going over the anchor string, here's the anchor string. You're going over it, and then under it, and through this hoop right here. And you're going to pull that tight. Now, there is some slack right here. Right, a little bit of slack, and the way I like to deal with that is to pull it out right here. So I'm pulling my pliers this way, and I'm helping to tighten this slack that's on the outside of the frame here. I pull it out, and then while still maintaining that pressure, I cinch the knot, and that gets rid of the extra slack that's on there. Some people would say to tension this last main tighter than the rest, but I find it's unnecessary, especially if you're getting that slack out. second knot. Again. Knot hole. Again, people are going to tell you, look it up online. You can find the exact knot hole and it'll go like, it'll say something like M7 and you got to count over 7. It's unnecessary. The knot hole is the one that's bigger than all the others and the string's going to fit through it better. There's some times where you'll still need pliers to push the string through. It would look kind of like this. Sometimes it's tight or you have a thick string and you'll have to actually push the string through with pliers. But it's still only going to go through one of the holes. And if you actually look down and peer through every hole, one of them is going to be bigger than the others. That's the knot hole. And again, pulling that slack out and then cinching it up. I'm not pulling very hard. Probably hard to see on the camera, but I'm not pulling that hard on this. I do wrap the string once around the pliers. That just prevents it from slipping. I know from experience, if you slip and you're pulling toward your face, you can hit your face. Doesn't feel great. But I'm not pulling too hard. You don't need to stress that knot out. It is designed to hold the tension on its own, so just need to cinch it up. Okay, the crosses. We got another knot to start it out. Again, look for the hole that's bigger than the others. You can see on this racket the string just slides right through it. See if I try a different hole, not going through, another hole. Oh, that one goes through. Oh, that would work for the mains. Right, so find the hole that goes through. This one happens to be right next to the first cross hole, which is nice. Okay, we're doing a starting knot here. Again, I will do a more in-depth video later. It's hard for you to see what's happening from that angle. But I'm doing a starting knot, which is bigger than the double half hitch I was doing before. And it gets tight by pulling tension on this side instead of on this side, which is going to be good because we're going to tighten this by pulling tension on our first cross string. And because of that extra size, you don't risk that knot being sucked into the hole, sucked into the grommet. Okay, so with the starting knot, I do like to hold the end of it. Helps to maintain that shape. It can kind of get a little crushed. If you hold the end of it, and especially pull it backward, it helps it keep a nice shape at the end. It's not really important, it's just an aesthetic thing. Okay. Time to clip these. They're going to get in the way, so now that we're done with these, we're going to clip them off. We got the plier going flush against the frame. That's going to prevent you from scraping the frame with the cutters. And we get all 3 knots. Chuck them in the trash. Okay, now ready to go. Now, anytime you're pulling the crosses, I'm fanning them. This is called fanning. Okay, fan it like this. If you just pull it as fast as you can, you're going to have this burning. It's going to create frictional heat, and that's going to burn the cross string. It's going to burn notches into them. Really going to lower the life of these strings. So always want to fan it. Okay, crosses. Again, I'm getting close. Now, I want to hold this string straight as I'm tensioning it. That's why I got my fingers right here. I'm holding the string straight. If I don't do that, especially as I get further along, the strings are going to tension with this bit of an arc to them. And what you're going to end up with is a lower dynamic tension again, because once you straighten that arc, it loosens up the string. Not something we want. So as soon as I pull it through, I like to, you can see the arc is formed already. Now that's gonna, you can see if I tension, well, hopefully you can see. some of that arc stays there. So when I pull it through, I like to get the arc out right away, but then I'm still going to hold it there as I'm tensioning it. Alright, so again, I'm holding it right there, making sure it's straight. Okay, last important thing, well, a couple more things. I'm fanning it through, and then what you might have noticed already is that I'm doing what's called weaving one ahead. So instead of, I could tension this string right now, but instead of tensioning it, I'm going to weave my next cross. Any of you that are having trouble weaving, learning how to weave, this is one of the best tips you can have, is just weave one ahead. It's very simple. It separates, so if these are strings, when you weave one ahead before tensioning it, so I got this one that's untensioned, it separates the strings so they're staggered. Instead of being flush, they're going to be staggered. So it creates a lot more of a gap for you to weave with. It makes it quite a bit easier, especially when we get down further into the racket and the dynamic tension has increased. Fanning the strings every time. Another thing, I'm watching for this right here. I'm making sure it's not twisted. If it's twisted when it goes through and it gets cinched, you're going to create well, you're going to cinch the string, and that's going to damage it, and you'd be surprised how much quicker a string can break by doing that. It's just one of those things where if you're rushing, you're not going to see that. So every time I pull the string through, my eyes are right here, and I'm just looking anytime that tangles up. This string doesn't tangle very much, so it's not big of a problem. But some strings tangle a whole bunch. It's like they want to live in a knot. And so you really got to keep your eyes open. Okay, the speed tip. You can see I don't have much of the string here. There's not much slack. I didn't pull the whole thing through. What this allows me to do is grab the tip. Now I'm still holding the tip. As I fan this racket, the tip is still in my hand. That way, I can go straight into the next hole. If I had just let go to pull it through, now I have to find it again. Alright? And you know, that probably took 3 seconds, but it adds up when you have to do it 20 times. So you can shave a few minutes off your string job just by holding the end of the string, especially on the crosses. It's not so important on the mains. On the crosses, you're going to save a lot of time. I got my dog here judging me. His name is Tidus. For anyone that's curious, he is a Basenji mix. Little weaving tips here. Well, first of all, make sure you're weaving opposite on each string. Easy way to check is just where you start and where you finish. This cross string goes under the first string and it ends over the string. If you got them going the same way, you did something wrong. You need to go back and fix that. But as far as a weaving tip, I'm not pushing very hard here. A lot of people think you really gotta like squeeze into it, dig into it. That's not the case. You want to be nice and light with it. You're just barely touching it. And go at an angle here. So you can see I'm not going straight across, I'm going at an angle. That creates more of a gap between the strings, right? So I'm going this way. I've got more room to weave it that way. Quite a bit easier. If I run out of slack, I just pull it through like I did. And again, you'll see here, I'm at an angle. Pull it through when you run out of room, and then basically go at the other angle. You're going back up. Okay, I have run out of things to tell you, so I'm going to fast forward through this part, and I'll meet you at the end of the racket. Okay, we're back. Going normal pace now. We're at the end of the crosses now, and what you probably have found out already, if you're stringing as well, is that weaving starts to get a lot harder here. And all that's really happened is that the dynamic tension that I keep mentioning, it's high enough now. We've got so many strings tightened that the mains are now no longer staggered at all. They're very taut. And so you can't weave near as quickly at the end. Oftentimes you're going to have to go 1 or 2 strings at a time and then pull the slack. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, you didn't mess anything up. That's just the way the end of the stringing process goes. Usually the last 2 mains, sometimes it'll be 3 of them. But you can see here I'm not going to be able to weave all the way through. You know, I got 1, 2, and I'm out of slack, and I got to go again. 1, 2. And 1, 2. Okay. And on this very last cross string, I do like to tension it twice. I do it once just to pull the slack out. I don't even go all the way, but just enough to pull the slack out, and then I do it again. Reason for this, the dynamic tension is so high on this that the friction of the mains is actually preventing the cross from tightening all the way the first time. There are videos from other users up on YouTube that prove this. Let's see, okay. Sometimes the knot hole to tie this off is right next to this grip, and if that's the case, you're not going to have room to tie it off. So try to take a look at where your knot hole is before you clamp the string. In this case, I got plenty of room so I can go right against the frame, but I might have had to slide this clamp over 1 notch to have room to tie the knot. On this particular racket, it's not an issue. Okay, finishing up here. Same thing, I'm doing a double half hitch. Rolling the string over once for my own protection, pulling the slack out, and cinching it off. Once more. Okay. And we gotta cut this string. Actually, take the clamp off. Now we gotta cut this string. Alrighty. Racket's pretty much done here. Side note, a little self-plug, if this was helpful to you at all in the learning process, if you just love hearing my voice for some reason, if you like the guest appearance from my dog, feel free to click the like button, subscribe if you want some more info, coaching, and stringing tips. Last thing I'm going to tell you for this racket, 1, make sure these strings are straight, at least if you're stringing for someone else. Alright, once you take it off, you're just going to go through, straighten all the strings, mains and crosses. You're also going to take one final peek to make sure you didn't miss a weave, you didn't mess up anywhere. Last thing, if you are done stringing for the day, set this tensioner back down to 0. Okay? Especially with a spring-based tensioner like this, it's going to really improve the life of that spring. You put it back to 0. I've had this machine for 10 years maybe, and I have never had to calibrate it. I've checked the calibration plenty of times to make sure. Never once have I had to calibrate it, and it's because I set it back to 0. So the spring, when I'm not using it, it's nice and relaxed. It's not being compressed all the time. If I had just left it at whatever tension it was at, I'd have to calibrate this several times over the course of the year. All right.